Now, regarding 50 Cent, Kendrick Lamar, and Drake. Now, if you're ready to see how 50 Cent has been questioned about Drake and Kendrick Lamar while out doing interviews for his documentary on Diddy's demise, and by doing this in an attempt to support his friend Cupcake Karen, he has disrespected the current rap king and demonstrated that, even with someone of his caliber, he is unable to comprehend that Kendrick is at the top. Make sure to subscribe and give a like. Since Kendrick Lamar's success is causing so many different MCs from so many various eras and styles of hip-hop to become enraged and to hate him in the most pitiful ways, we are witnessing a line in rap divide in real time. Actually, before we continue, please remember to hit the like button. I think it's crucial to observe how Kendrick Lamar drives these rappers insane in a way that, in my opinion, we have never seen a hip-hop champion make legends and players in the game more enraged overall. And when you learn why, and when you see how 50 Cent defended himself here, you realize a lot more than we ever knew or anticipated when this whole beef began because, to be honest, the way 50 Cent discusses Drake here virtually confirms that 50 was directly instructing Drake on how to oppose Kendrick Lamar and assisting him in attempting to undermine Kendrick's entire career. However, let's first examine what 50 Cent actually stated and how he did it before delving more into it, which I am unable to display the video of at this time. 50 and Ari Melba, who you may have seen on the news frequently mentioning and quoting hip-hop, had an interview. He enjoys talking to rappers as often as possible and is a major admirer of hip-hop. Additionally, as we don't really have time to talk about 50 Cent's press trip for his upcoming documentary on Diddy's downfall, by someone who enjoys hip-hop and isn't merely there to talk to 50 about, he seemed to ask Diddy some questions about what's happening in the broader rap scene, despite the most scandalous things going on around him. Naturally, Kendrick versus Drake has been the biggest thing in hip-hop for the past year or two. The consequences of that's precisely what he discussed with 50. And what he ultimately asked 50 was a straightforward but significant question to pose to someone who has played a significant role in hip-hop in the past. This had to do with the beef between Drake and Kendrick. In the end, was it better for mixed or hip-hop? Now that we have the quote from 50 Cent, let's read it. I believe it's fantastic for hip-hop, and it's competitive. It's not. It's not. You need to battle for the #1 slot, he stated. Even though when you're in the top, you've got to hit document. 10 people are still present. The finest one is unknown to us. And that's kind of okay. Furthermore, it seems as though he is addressing hip-hop conventions and the comprehension of the game in a particular manner. However, this is the point at which everything becomes strange and the whole context shifts. Drake is in a situation where he continually delivers so much that the audience is opposing his content. It's not a terrible tune. Simply put, they are choosing not to accept the way due to the weather. And with this, we are once more witnessing a rapper, and this one was much more well-known than Drake during his heyday and who was among the most well-known and powerful rappers we have ever seen for a few years. And to be honest, you can make that claim about all of music, not just hip-hop. And well, even though 50 used to have this status, and to be honest, even though he is one of the most competitive rappers of all time, he would never have done this for himself or tried to win a beef or back and forth. That's why he's sitting here with Diddy and doing all of this right now, and not even in a position to talk about it. Despite all of that, we witness 50 going against his principles when he was at the height of his rap career, and instead attempt to utilize this pathetic justification for Drake will attempt to explain away his lackluster performance over the past year and the reason he lost the beef altogether. And with this, there's a lot to analyze in terms of how he is attempting to downplay Drake's loss and make it seem like rather than one rapper being superior to the others in every way, it was something that came from the system and the atmosphere of hip-hop. But in all honesty, I find it incredibly unsatisfactory. And after witnessing 50 runs with this storyline that a lot of other rappers, both young and old, have attempted to utilize in order to defend Drake, as if it were their job or as if everything depended on it, I'm going to dig in because the current condition of hip-hop is so perplexing that it demonstrates how much the culture has truly lost the plot, and instead of genuinely advocating for the truth in this matter and standing on the rules and the merit of the culture that every single person who gets to speak on this level has, people have just been engrossed in the industry games and, well, picking their favorites. profited from what it has always represented and how you have always had to adhere to it. Because, really, there have been a ton of people like Young Thug, 21 Savage, The Game, 50 Cent, and many more. You may add Lil Baby to the list. J. Cole might even be added to that list. You could go on and on about all these folks who have subtly disparaged Kendrick and attempted to downplay his accomplishments. It's all so strange, really. And you know, I almost want to give 50 Cent some credit because, at least in this interview, he seems like he believes it and says it with a smile on his face, which I suppose is the manipulator and strategist within him. However, when all these other males do it, they appear to be throwing a temper tantrum, look down, and get insecure. It's similar to how Ish on the Joe Budden podcast is evaluated by fans of the show. To get to the core of why it's so frustrating to see 50 Cent talk like this, despite the fact that we are aware that he has supported Drake and that, in all honesty, he may have been Drake's closest ally during this whole battle from the time like that debuted until now, is simply because you are sitting in front of all of us, and it's never just that Kendrick Lamar won this feud. Perhaps Drake is superior overall, but I disagree. Furthermore, I doubt that the majority of rap fans do. However, if that's what you wanted to say, it's at least more respectable and acknowledges the obvious truth that Kendrick Lamar won the lyrical and rapping battle. It's not even that, though. And once more, what is so confusing, and it truly demonstrates how enraged everyone is about Kendrick's success, and I'm sure they wouldn't stop praising Drake if it were the other way around. It all boils down to how they attempt to deal with and rationalize the reality that Kendrick prevailed because of this kind of shadow presence, industry games, and blatant manipulation and trickery that were used, all of which are ultimately meant to serve as a distraction from the reality that Kendrick was superior. Because if we simply examine when you look at what 50 says about Drake, you can see that he uses the convenience of a moment that was all set up against him to justify Drake's defeat and Kendrick's victory, as an explanation for Drake's defeat in this conflict, stating that Drake is in a position where the audience is rejecting his content because he has consistently delivered so much. That's one of the dumbest arguments I've ever heard, and it's really just one of the most depressing ways to deal with the reality that you've lost and have no other options. I have never heard of someone as creatively impoverished as you. Rappers have demonstrated that it is possible to truly dominate not only the hip-hop industry, but also the whole music industry by becoming superstars. Commercially, critically, and culturally for as long as you'd like. And you know, when I simply consider the great hip-hop artists who have ruled for a long time and wonder if their work has ever faced opposition like 50 Cent is talking about, well, that is the only instance in which it has. When it's not terrible music, like, let's just say, some of Eminem or Jay-Z, who were incredible superstars, or even 50 Cent when they released albums that were just mediocre or lousy, audiences have not been able to accept it or have not been ready for it again. Then, people oppose that. Apart from releasing subpar music, people don't oppose fantastic music unless it's ahead of its time. Unless someone like Kanye was releasing Yeezus or Kendrick Mr. Morale. Additionally, unless it's as avant-garde as those CDs that people aren't truly prepared to understand what they are hearing and attempting to comprehend. To return to Drake, when I mention Mr. Morale and Jesus, those are actual albums by superstars that were met with resistance of the popular claims made by the performers in their prior albums. Drake isn't releasing an album that's even remotely experimental or dangerous, and is not doing anything that's a little bit different. Therefore, it would be incorrect to sit here and claim that people didn't like Iceman's singles, SSS, or even the songs from The Beef because he has constantly produced content that the audience is rejecting. That is untrue. That is a blatantly dishonest untruth. Furthermore, the assertion is completely nonsensical because, although Drake hasn't always been outstanding, he has continuously produced the same kind of music, which you could refer to as the Marvel movie of rap. Again, he wasn't breaking the mold, and you kind of knew exactly what you were going to get in the exact box he was going to play in, whether it was pop R&B, pop rap, or something in between that he was taking from. But once more, it was always very secure, and a copy of what everyone else was doing and what was considered normal. It was so simple to accept. To be honest, the closest analogy I could find for this is someone like Future, who was around the same period, and in Drake has regularly achieved high numbers in the same era by releasing music that is essentially the same both sonically and aesthetically. Additionally, no one has truly rejected him, and his hits have always been huge. Almost every time he has taken on a project or just throughout a significant period in his professional life. Do you know why people have rejected Drake, but not Future? Since one's music has become dramatically worse, whereas the other has maintained the same level of excellence throughout their career. I say all of that to express how tired I am of skirting the issue when it comes to many of these major players. Kendrick Lamar defeated Drake handily in hip-hop. He simply outwitted him in every way, and Drake could have won the beef by doing the exact same thing in a vacuum. But once more, he just failed to take the necessary actions to outwork again. There was a lot on the line in this rap chess game and a lyrical back and forth between Kendrick Lamar. And that's what's really annoying, because it's clear that Kendrick and Drake had the largest rap feud ever. And in all honesty, perhaps they're the greatest event in the entertainment sector to date, at least in the 2020s. Therefore, it is incredibly dishonest to try to claim that the winner only prevailed on a technicality after realizing the magnitude and stakes of the entire situation. Regardless of whether you identify as hip-hop or not, this is one of the most anti-hip-hop things you can do, since it simply reflects poorly on the culture. While you are giving the biggest rap less priority, moment away from the artwork and the elements that truly contributed to its iconic and captivating quality. And once more, you're attempting to explain why Not Like Us became possibly the biggest rap song of the year by claiming that certain tricks were used or that people had a strange dislike for Drake. The whole century. You know, it's very hilarious because the game has been making fun of and mocking Kendrick Lamar lately, and now 50 Cent is as well. Despite their historical distinctions, the game and 50 do seem to share a similar ideology regarding their contempt for Kendrick Lamar. Despite the fact that both of them had positive relationships with a rapper prior to this feud, and before Kendrick emerged as the genre's undisputed king and accomplished things that no other rapper had ever done, either the stadium tour or the Super Bowl. Furthermore, it appears that after Kendrick defeated Drake, whom everyone adored or believed to be untouchable, and achieved success that surpassed that of any rapper in history, they seemed to suddenly turn against him, try to use his success as an excuse for industry games and tactics, and have begun to put up with Drake far more than they have in the past. Furthermore, I believe that 50 Cent's contempt and strange animosity towards Kendrick Lamar do reflect the games in a variety of ways. Because, in my opinion, it all stemmed from the same idea that, regardless of whether Kendrick Lamar was ranked 3rd, 7th, 15th, or even 2nd in the rap world, they were content with his status, with his achievements. However, they are unable to deal with the fact that someone like him has risen to the top. And the reason this seems to be, and the more we hear about him, the more I believe it makes sense, is that for it's not what Kendrick Lamar is doing, but rather how he accomplished it and how he got there in the first place. In other words, from Drake to almost every other rapper and musician in the history of the music business, when you enter a label, and you're attempting to pursue superstardom and become the most well-known person you can be, it frequently necessitates sacrificing your own beliefs and values. Additionally, we are simply selling out and engaging in very absurd actions that do not represent who you are, which undermines your basic principles and perhaps even the reason you entered this field and profession in the first place. All in an attempt to pursue something that, if done incorrectly, can only make you the worst and most shallow version of yourself, which is just how Drake came to receive what he did. And when you consider what Drake had to do to maintain his previous position in the music industry, which essentially involved him stealing and duplicating from every aspect of music in an effort to appeal to as many people as possible, he used as many people as possible to create these large albums that covered a wide range of topics. And then we just witnessed all the other absurd things Drake did, which at the same time had him attempting to move like a Taylor Swift sidekick while also acting like a really intimidating guy and villain. After Drake, 50 Cent, who was once the biggest rapper in the world, understands what it takes to get there and the challenges he faced. Which I mean, considering how ubiquitous 50 Cent was at his prime, you could argue that he was the largest rapper for a few years at one time. You may listen to 50's music in light of all of that, as well as the image that the business attempted to present more. Debut album, And you could see that it is still very unabashedly him, even though it clearly has a huge mainstream appeal. You can see how the industry was pressuring him to slightly exaggerate his traits even throughout the slaughter. Truly concentrate on producing specific kinds of music that, when diluted, will actually dilute themselves and become some of the most trivial things you can do in this field. And I say, all of that to say, when you look at what 50 and Drake had to do to become successful, the ridiculous songs they had to write over the years, and the ridiculous things they had to do, you can compare it to Kendrick Lamar, who got to perform Man of the Garden at the Super Bowl, which, although I could say a lot more, I believe captures a lot of the division and the reasons why so many of these people who have been exploited and corrupted by the industry simply despise him. If I were to delve a little deeper, it all boils down to the fact that in spite of being the world's biggest rapper and bringing hip-hop to previously unheard-of heights, unlike Drake, 50, and many other celebrities in our industry, Kendrick Lamar has never been compelled to write anthems, yet he has been able to genuinely develop into a more independent artist who can produce anything he wants and move in any direction at any time. And when you consider that, as well as the image that Kendrick has managed to project and promote as the face of rap, in contrast to 50 and Drake, who once more, they were both pushed to be these tough guys, and there were also these guys that were constantly in the club, and you know that was pretty much the pinnacle of their personalities in terms of what the industry wanted them to be, which was to make the males feel tough and the girls like them. Once more, you see why there is jealousy when you consider how sophisticated and multidimensional Kendrick Lamar has grown while rising higher and higher in this industry. Additionally, it's when you consider it and realize how deeply ingrained everything is, it truly seems weird. And to be honest, I find it annoying when people attempt to fabricate all these false statistics in order to promote Drake and make him seem amazing. Kendrick Lamar is still the same person he was when they first met him in the early 2010s, despite the fact that he has accomplished more than them, is larger than them, and occupies a higher position in the industry. They are completely enraged by that, and that really, truly bothers them. And all I can think about are the times I hear 50 Cent, Joe and Jada conversing, Drake, Lil Baby, Young Thug, J. Cole, and many more. They are furious at Kendrick because of this. And for that reason, they will keep smearing his name. And that's all due to the way he accomplished it. Furthermore, when I simply consider Kendrick Lamar's leadership role in hip-hop and observe how everything I believe that Kendrick Lamar is the only person who can truly advise him on how to proceed with his career because of the way these people observe what he is doing and how they are always trying to coach his career and tell him what to do. And the reason I say that is because he has followed his own route and climbed higher than everybody else. And you know, even when you consider the ascent of Drake and 50, who were on the verge of being pop icons, the bigger and bigger they grew. And as a result, the fundamental hip-hop ideas that underpinned them were weakened. Then again, depending on how you choose to interpret and approach it, they started to resemble Beyoncé or Taylor Swift. That could be the sole explanation for why Kendrick Lamar has succeeded in elevating hip-hop to a level that very few people have ever reached. Perhaps aside from Kanye West and Eminem in terms of simply taking the genre to previously unheard-of heights. And you can truly tell when you simply consider of how Kendrick has taken hip-hop's ideals and brought them to these locations where it has gained greater visibility. Once more, people haven't witnessed a watered-down, flanderized version of hip-hop. Instead, they've witnessed the real thing and its genuine beliefs pushed forward and installed in these locations, which once more caused everyone to panic that he had reached there. For this reason, 50 Cent and the other guys will keep trying to cope and cape for Drake. And the reason for this is that when they see Drake, if they simply keep selling out and compromising everything that made them who they are, they will eventually see a version of themselves that just played the industry games the best and reached the greatest point possible. And all of that is to argue that with 50 Cent, regardless of how no matter how hilarious and excellent it is that he is exposing individuals like Diddy, someone should be calling this out. Even if you are from hip-hop, I still have to give him credit as one of the few rappers, and especially superstars at that, regardless of whether he is doing it morally or immorally, to simply state that this is wrong. Having said that, when you talk about the current guy who is stealing everything you're meant to love and moving on to the greatest spot we've ever seen, with your help, you never know where rap might end up. The fact that so many of these guys still treat Kendrick disrespectfully is really depressing and disgraceful. However, as Kendrick Lamar honestly stated, the hatred becomes genuine, or the love might be phony. But that's how you should enjoy it when you're this amazing. After saying all of that, please let me know. What are your thoughts on 50 Cent's remarks on Kendrick Lamar? What does this reveal about the music business? And what do you believe all of this will eventually be guaranteed? Now that you've reached this stage in the video, please remember to subscribe and leave a like. It is really helpful to me. And now, if you'd like to watch how the game was disparaging Kendrick immediately prior to this, that is, before 50 Cent was doing so, not just in the initial interviews, as we saw 50 here, but Game created an album with 5 whole songs instead of simply 1, 2, 3, or 4, where he is speaking and disparaging Kendrick Lamar. And with it, I believe we're doing great. Might receive an answer from Kendrick Lamar very soon. You won't want to miss it. This one. Thus, review the recommended